Good afternoon, ladies. In my last video, when I was showing some of the things that I got from the antique store, someone asked if I would show what I was going to do with them. And I'm in the process of working on that, but meanwhile, I thought I would show you my first junk journal that I made. Now, this was from Marianne Moss's class, Remains of the Day. Her website is Dispatch from LA, and I think she was probably one of the pioneers of those that started sewing papers together and making junk journals like that, or as far as my research can tell anyway. So this is a cover made with just fabric scraps. When I was making this, I happened to be at my daughter-in-law's and she had this awesome canvas fabric with Paris on it, and I asked her if I could steal it and she let me, and I loved adding it to my cover. So it isn't quilted. I just zigzagged a whole bunch of different fabrics on top, and it makes it nice and floppy. And then I love this nice long tie. I'll probably be doing these in more of my journals. Okay, so hopefully this is in frame. So now the only thing that I have to finish this is to sew in my signatures. I have 4 signatures here and I need to sew them in. I haven't done that. So, but I thought I'd give you a flip anyway. I made this thing, I think it was either back in 2013 or maybe it was 2014. So it's time for me to finish it, for sure. So what I did is I used a bunch of, I ordered a bunch of vintage papers from Etsy, from different shop owners. And I used those. I used a lot of little journal tags, ledger paper, photograph plastics that you just sew on. This is kind of feel like rubber. It's actually a sticker. I used some washi tape. I had a lot of fun making this. This was my first foray into this. Now, Marianne Moss gives printables with her class, and this was one of them here. This is a piece of vellum and just some journal cards, and then I kind of just stacked them all which way when I was sewing them. This was an old Prima line. I used a punch to do some of my edges with. These are a couple tuck spots, and I just tucked in some journal cards. Now this one here I kind of based on a sewing theme. I wanted to gather up all my paraphernalia from our years on the road doing quilt shows and journal about that and put it in here. And so that's the purpose of this journal. This was a little stamp that I had. So lots of sewing of bits and pieces. A lot of times you might just throw a piece like that away, but it's great for junk journals to put in. Now the Dictionary of Needlework, I have that whole book, and I bought that just to make sewing journals with. So this is just some lace. Again, I sewed this in the middle, this journal card. Here's another one of her printables. And I've been collecting sewing themed things for a while now. Now, one thing she teaches in her class is to truly make this a junk journal and use junk papers. And one thing she says to collect is junk mail and the extra envelopes you get, like when you're supposed to pay a bill, that has especially this window see-through thing. So that was kind of fun. This was a piece of lace I've had forever and a day. I used my little stamp here. Made a tuck pocket here with my vellum. This is just a little ticket. Another little tuck spot. Here is another photo plastic thing that you can put, you know, either photos in or journal cards. Some lace I just added, and this I actually did that to make it look older a little bit. So I did stamping in it, and I added stickers. This is vintage ledger paper. This isn't vintage ledger paper, but it is ledger paper. Now this was a Bow Bunny line, and I love the colors of it. And I love this sewing form. Now this fabric here is by Verna Mosquera. I think it might have been her first line with Free Spirit. And I used it demoing how to use Mylar, no melt Mylar hexagon templates on the road, and So, and I'll do a video of that someday. I still sell the little templates, but it was a beautiful line, kind of the raspberry pink colors. This was just a little tiny sack. I think I got that from Michael's. There's an old check from 1919. Now what I do is I actually copy these off on either onion skin paper or Tomoe River paper to put in my journals, and I try to keep the original vintage pieces. Here's another vintage paper, and I loved the way, this is stamped. These are all stamps, and I love the way it looked. It kind of looks like it was part of it with that color of ink. I love that writing too. That's something from 1888. Pretty cool, from the railroad company. Ballswell, New York. That's another vintage piece. That's a stamp. These are stamps. This is note cards that I've been using for years for my letter writing. I put one of those in it because it kind of fit the theme. I love old library card tickets. I even like finding books in my Junkin that has those in them still. This was just a piece of leftover, and so I just sewed it in. Now, one thing, it's best not to do a straight stitch when you're sewing these vintage papers in, because a lot of times it perforates them, which is actually, I think, what happened to this one here. It's better to do a zigzag or some sort of different sewing, whatchamacallit, when you're actually sewing them in. I love these old crinkly, I don't know where I got this envelope. I think I might have got it from an Etsy seller or something they were selling me. And these are just all vintage pieces that came in a pack. Etsy is a great place to find vintage collections for doing junk journals with. This is all vintage papers. Here I made a tuck spot. This was a Prima line. Yeah, I think that was a Prima line. Love this. I know this is a newer paper, but I love the old vintage either photographs or drawings or books that have the pictures of the women sewing or doing embroidery. Here, this lace here is actually from my wedding dress from 1980 that my mother-in-law, I actually wore my mother's wedding dress, but we made an overcoat, and this was some of the lace that my mother-in-law used. So I thought, and she's the one who taught me how to sew. So I thought that was very appropriate. Here again, sewing, some stamping. And here, you know, when you're doing this, you can just add little bits and pieces. You know, you can put together whatever you like. It doesn't just have to be one piece. I love sewing these down the middle too. I think that's kind of cool. Oh, this is the perforated page. There's just a little bit left, but it perforated instead of being sewn in. And this one, here again, that was just a little leftover piece. This is a stamp I have that I love. Now this is that Tomoe River paper that I can watercolor on. Here, sewed down the middle, so that leaves a journaling spot there, and, well, I guess just on the top here. This came in from an Etsy seller in a package that I got. It's not vintage, but there were 2 or 3 of those in there, and I really like that. This is a vintage card. I think that's in French. Some lace. This is another tuck spot with a piece of vellum. That's the other side of that, and it's all tearing too. Now these are just little photo plastic sheets I sewed down the middle. That's something she shows in her class. This is from 1892. I thought that was pretty cool. I love these old things from the library catalog, the big things where you used to have to go and actually look up a book in the catalog if you were looking for a book at the library. I'm not sure where that thing goes. So I sew on tags, or I make little flags and sew those on. Here was a little teacup. I sewed it on. Here's just a little bit of fabric that normally you would throw out. I put it on top of lace and added it onto a vintage piece of paper. Sewing mends the soul. I love my stamps that have to do with sewing. These Marianne also has as a printable in different colors in that class. It's just a flip up for a journaling spot. So, and that was a kind of ribbon that came in a Christmas set a few years ago. I don't even remember the name of that. Again, vintage paper, just with a little tiny bit of lace on it. This was actually held something, and I took it and I just sewed on different things to it. It was a vintage piece, and made it as a whole flap. And we are coming to the end. And these little things, you know, you can put photos in them or just put in journaling cards. Bible verses would be neat in that too. I love these little file folders that, oh, that was when I first started buying scrapbook paper. I don't remember the name of the line. And anyway, that is the end. So this is the cover on the inside. That is how that looks. And once I get those sewn in, and you can put a button on here or whatnot, but I just love the way that it was wrapped. So that is my first ever junk journal, and I hope you guys enjoyed the flip through. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you guys so much again for watching. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos, and I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.